Okay, I'm going to talk in this video about hreflang issues. So there are 5 different hreflang issues that you might find in your SEMrush report. This video is going to cover them all because the solutions are pretty much the same, or at least your next step is going to be the same. So those 5 issues are, I'm just going to read them off here. If you have any of these, you should watch this video. So number 1, issues with hreflang values. Number 2, pages have no hreflang and lang attributes. Number 3, issues with incorrect hreflang links. Number 4, pages have hreflang language mismatch issues. And number 5, hreflang conflicts within page source code. Okay, so first, what does this mean? What does hreflang mean? So I will link to a resource if you want to get into this, but very briefly, what the hreflang attributes are telling Google and browsers when a user visits your website is what language your site is in and what geography your site is in. Or I should say, what geography your website is targeting. Where are the users that you are targeting with your website? So you might wonder, well, if a site is in English, does it matter what geography I specify? And the answer is yes. And there are a couple different reasons for that. Number 1, let's take English, for example. English is spoken all over the world, but there are differences. Just look at American English versus, say, British English. When an American website talks about chips, we might mean one thing. On a British website, chips would mean something different. Or the boot of a car versus the boot that you put on your feet. Or simply dollar signs versus pound signs. These things will help Google show their users the right page that you want them to go to. So situation number 2 where this might happen, you might be in a region where 2 different languages are spoken. So you might have a page, it might be the same page, and you have a version in English and a version in Japanese, let's say. This is done a lot in Japan. Lots of websites are both in English and in Japanese. Sometimes the same page has both languages there. So this can be a very unique situation if you're in Japan. Or perhaps Canada, French Canada. A website could be in English, could be in French, could be in both. And then reason number 3, what if your website targets many different countries? You have an international business. This happens a lot with big companies, happens a lot with e-commerce sites. And again, Google needs to know where it should be sending those users. So this is more common for bigger websites, for international websites, for e-commerce sites. As a local business owner, you probably won't run into this, but it might happen. It will probably depend on your profile information. If you're setting up a Squarespace website, for example, you probably need to put in your country. That setting, whatever you set up as your primary country, is probably going to go into your hreflang attributes. If you have WordPress or show it with WordPress, this will either be done with a default setting, or again, if you're using show it, whatever setting you set up your profile with, that will probably translate to your hreflang values. Now, again, local businesses, this usually is not going to be a common problem. If you do have this issue, put it in the comments. I'd be curious to see it. Like I said, I don't see many local businesses with this issue. So I would like to see, if you're having this issue, link to your website in the comments and say what the issue is that you're having. Now, this issue, I will not lie, is tricky. Personally, I consider this to be over my head technology-wise. When I come across this issue, I often have to consult one of my colleagues who specializes in this area. And when I have had in the past projects that are based on this, I've had a couple projects that we just want to figure this out. A company in Japan, an international company with offices in Japan, Germany, England, US, etc. It becomes very important at that point because that website needs to satisfy a range of geographies and languages, and it needs to do it in a way that Google likes. And I will give you a heads up. If you think, and I see people do this often, if you are able to do this from a technology standpoint, a lot of times people do this, and what they do is they read the user's IP address of whoever is visiting the site and then send them to the correct page, the correct language or geography. Do not do that. Absolutely do not do that. That is a very bad solution. Google does not like that because the Google bot is always going to have an IP address from California. So when the Google bot goes and checks a site in Japan, it's going to look to that website as if it's a visitor from California. So if you read that IP address and then send that visitor to California, that's going to mess everything up. So don't do that. Chances are good you probably are not doing that, but I have seen a lot of bigger companies with dev teams doing that as a solution, thinking that it's working, and it is definitely a bad solution. So what do you do if you do have this issue? If you are on WordPress, I will link to a couple articles here that are helpful. I would suggest looking for a plugin that helps you handle hreflang values. And these articles that I gave you are going to tell you exactly what to do, how to set those up. And in those cases, what you do is install the plugin, set them up according to the instructions below, and then rerun the SEMrush audit and see if that issue persists. Regardless, if it does or doesn't resolve the issue, please still put it in the comments. I would like to get a better idea of what common issues for local business owners might be. And if you're on Squarespace, unfortunately, you're probably going to have to reach out to Squarespace support and ask them how to adjust your hreflang values. They will probably point you in the direction of just changing something in your profile setup when you say, I am located in the US and my site is in English. It should be pretty simple to do, but you may have to reach out to Squarespace support. I'm sorry I don't have a simpler solution for you, but like I said, even for me, I cringe when I see this issue. What I recommend doing before you even try to tackle it is try to fix the other issues that you have in SEMrush. Try to get your score as high as you can, because if you can get your score in SEMrush to a 92 or better, then this issue becomes less important because your site has an A, essentially, right? And then come back to this issue at the end. It is important, so I do recommend that you try to resolve it, but first get your score up as high as you can before taking care of it, okay? I hope that helps.